Welcome to the Integrative Science of Water and Consciousness podcast. Veda Austin and Seth Pruzansky co-host a powerful ongoing series about the new science of water and how our consciousness can positively affect the water we drink, the water in our bodies, and the bodies of water on our planet. Together they bring an impassioned, wisdom-filled dialogue about all things water, ignited by a mutual love of this most precious element. In addition to their own research, knowledge, and experience, they interview the most cutting-edge water scientists, researchers, entrepreneurs, and water advocates in our world today. To learn more about Veda Austin, please go to vedaaustin.com. To learn more about Seth and Tourmaline Spring, go to tourmalinespring.com and I'mAwakeNowWhat.com. Thank you. Hello, everybody. I am Seth, and I'm here with my dearest friend, Veda Austin, and this is the Integrative Science of Water and Consciousness podcast. And this is a true passion play where we are going to get into the deepest, most profound aspects of water and consciousness as it relates to possibility. Because we live at a time when there is so much happening, and the way things were are not the way they're going to be. So a new consciousness, a new way of being is literally emerging now. And if we literally open our minds to possibility and potential and focus on the unifying themes within us all that we can all relate to, we find that water is at the top of that list. And Veda's work with water has inspired me so deeply that I couldn't even put it into words that would do it justice. But I am confident that you all are going to really begin to experience why I'm so inspired when you hear about Veda, when you hear what she has gone through, what she's experienced, how she has been able to heal from the impossible and literally create possibility from that place. So this is Veda. Veda, I want to introduce you to everybody at Tourmaline Spring here, and let's hear what you have to share.
Sure. Thank you so much, Seth, and hi, everybody. I thought I'd begin with my journey back at the beginning with water. Although it might not seem like it has anything to do with water, when I begin telling this story, you'll see how all roads have led me on this path towards not just water, but water, consciousness, spirit, and so much more. So about 25 years ago, I was in a really horrendous car accident. We went under a 7-ton truck, rolled twice. The driver was decapitated. It was considered one of the worst accidents in New Zealand where someone survived. So I remember coming to as soon as the car had stopped rolling. The car was on its side, and the seatbelt had wrapped around my waist and crushed my internal organs. And I was in so much pain, but I was able to cry out for help. And I'm so grateful that I couldn't see the man's body, the driver that died. But when I cried out for help, the man who had been following us in his car, he had a MiG fighter jet that he was showing around New Zealand. And he happened to be in a fireproof outfit, and the car had happened to start sparking. And so he heard me cry out. And, I think he's such a hero because he had to climb over that man's body to unclip the seatbelt, where I just fell into his arms, and he carried me to the side of the road and placed me down on the road. And I remember looking up into his glasses and seeing my reflection was just white and blood everywhere. And he was amazing and so comforting. And I was asking what happened to the man, and he said that that he died. And what I found interesting was that I had had suffered and gone through one of the most traumatic experiences, and yet I had retained all my memory before and after having been knocked out. I remember I gave him my mother's phone number at her work that I had remembered. And so he rang her. Then the ambulance came and took me to hospital. And I remember being in this unit and people looking quite shocked at the state of me. I had no idea what I looked like. I was an absolute mess. My face was just black and blue and glass all over me. My eyes were just, every part of them was red. I'd broken my collarbone and ribs and lots of internal bleeding. But somehow I after they'd given me some pain relief, I remember joking with one of the doctors and just still retaining somehow my sense of humor through this. And then I was in hospital for 4 days, and they spent hours and actually days picking all the glass out of my face and out of my head and my body. And I remember, I think it was day 3, they helped me up to have a shower. And I remember the lady was washing my hair, and half my hair came out, and it would have been chopped up from the glass, from the windscreen. And there was just blood everywhere. There's just blood and glass and hair. And as of yet, I still hadn't even seen myself in the mirror. And I had wanted to like see what I looked like. And so when they showed me, I was like, oh God. And the glass where they'd picked out, I was just scarred everywhere. And over the course of a year, I had to go to hospital about 12 times because there was scar tissue on my small bowel where the seatbelt had wrapped around my waist, had created scar tissue that was starting to cut my digestive system off. So every time I would try and eat, I would just like vomit and vomit and vomit. And I'd end up in hospital. And after being in hospital, they would put me on a saline drip, and all the food would go away, and I would notice that I was starting to feel so much better, but I was also getting, properly hydrated. And there was this point I remember thinking that there was something special about salt water, saline water, that they give you intravenously, because we're not a body of fresh water, we're a body of salt water. And I do remember being really feeling so much better after being on this drip. And so after a year, I had finally I saw a specialist, and he was like, "Oh my God, I don't know how you've managed this last year." He said, well, we're going to do bowel surgery. So I had bowel surgery done on my small bowel, and they cut about, I think he said it was something like 18 inches out of my small bowel. It was a lot. We have a lot of small bowel, thank God.
Yeah.
But it seems like a lot. But after that, it took me a while to heal. But it was about 6-7 weeks after that surgery, I went to India to just really trial that bowel out with the vegetarian curry over there. But anyway, that was and I was, and I was fine, and it really made me appreciate what we put into our body, being able to actually eat food without being in pain. And 3 doctors had told me over the course of that year that I would never be able to have children. They said that the scar tissue was so bad around all my internal and reproductive organs that it was virtually going to be impossible that I would ever have children. However, I don't really like being told what I can't do. So I actually ended up having 3 children for every doctor that told me I couldn't.
Wow.
So But over the course of that, over 20 years, I have had 8 surgeries. Most of them have been bowel resections, but one for my broken collarbone and for stage 4 endometriosis, all different kinds of operations. But as I mentioned earlier, one of the things that happened was that the glass really went through my face. So what was interesting, though, is that in the back of this guy's car, there were crates of Steinlager, and Steinlager glass is green. And so when the
What is
car
that?
rolled,
Is that kind of a water?
no, Steinlager is like a beer.
It's a beer. Okay. Oh, lager. Right. Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's popular here in New Zealand. But anyway, the glass of the Steinlager beer is green, and so when the car rolled, the glass smashed as well as the windscreen, and so I had lots of different colored glass in my body, and so I'm telling you that for a reason, is that over the course of all these years, I had all these surgeries. My last surgery, they found I had blood clots in my lungs. My
When was your
body
last
hadn't
surgery?
recovered. Sorry?
When was your last surgery?
About 10 years ago. And so they found that I had these blood clots. So my body hadn't recovered very well from the bowel surgery. And I think from all the anesthetic and everything that I'd gone through, my body was in trauma. And so it formed clots after post-surgery or during surgery, sorry. And so anyway, I remember going, oh my God, no, how is this possible? See, I've never actually drunk alcohol. I've been vegetarian since I was 8. I look after myself, and I live a holistic life. So I was like, what the heck? Well, why am I getting these blood clots? And so they wanted me to go on warfarin for a 6-month period, and that's essentially a kind of blood thinner. It's also a rat poison, and I was in quite a lot of resistance to doing that, but the medical profession was really saying, no, you need to do this, and that can be quite scary, when you're faced with alternatives that are really bad. And so another doctor friend of mine, who is an integrative doctor, he's a medical doctor, but integrates Ayurvedic medicine, I suppose. And he said, look, if you can find a natural source of high alkaline water, he emphasized natural, then maybe it might be something that could potentially help, to balance what's going on in your body. So we have all these buffers in our body to keep the alkalinity of our blood exactly as it is.
Yeah.
So it's unusual for your body to become acidic. It's actually hard for that to happen, because everything is making sure that the body functions so well. Yeah. But that's what happens, when you get these clots, is that and things become more acidic, and then the blood starts clotting, and it's very dangerous. So I was like, oh God, yeah, drinking water, that's got to be good. So that felt way better than having to be taking warfarin and having to have these injections every week to test your blood, and everything's just bruising everywhere. And so I started doing 8-week trials on our different waters with a pH of a 7 up. So on average, it was like between a 7.8, 8.2, 8, all kind of around that area of pH, which stands for the potential power of hydrogen. I didn't really notice anything. I didn't know what I would expect. I thought, well, maybe I'll be more hydrated or something. And then a friend of mine, she said, I know this man, this older man, and he has his own private water source, and he's only giving water to cancer patients right now. He's not selling it commercially. Perhaps, you might want to get some from him, because his water pH out of the ground is 9.9. I'm like, holy heck, I never heard of such a high pH naturally occurring out of the ground. And so I went and I saw him. I told him my story. He gave me a month's worth of water to try. And so I started drinking it, really observing that I had made no other changes to my diet, to anything, to see and feel whether or not it would make a difference. And I've been doing that with all the other different trials I've done with different waters. After 3 days, I really noticed a change in something that I think a lot of people don't like to talk about, but I think it's important. We talk about bowel motions as a state of our internal health. And I'd had all this bowel surgery. And so bowel motions were like something that, I was aware of.
Yeah.
And so, things really shifted in that I noticed that, that things were moving in a much better direction than they had been, to say that. And for me, that was improving how I was feeling, and I think so many people are grossly dehydrated because they're sitting on the toilet trying to push out a pebble for half an hour or an hour, and that's not natural, but that's really common.
Yeah.
And that's a bad state of dehydration. And so, I noticed that. And then after 10 days, what I found to be one of the most remarkable things happened, where, bearing in mind, this is 25 years after my car accident, I had all these bumps coming up along my arm and along my jaw that were really painful. And I had a sense that my body was sort of having some kind of detox, I guess. But I didn't, in that moment, I wasn't sure what was going on. But they were so painful that I noticed when I scratched one of them, it was sharp. And I got some tweezers and I sort of went in and I pulled out this green glass. I'm oh my God. So then, as amazing and disgusting as it was, at the same time, I had a friend help me pull all this glass out of my jaw and my arm, and most of it was green. I had 27 pieces of glass come out to the surface of my arm and my jaw that had been embedded in my body for over 25 years, and the only thing I'd done different was drink this unique water that I'd found. And I'm like, I need to know more about this. Yeah, and so I had a wellness centre here in New Zealand at the time, and I asked a number of people whether they'd be interested in just trying the water for themselves. And so, although these aren't clinical trials, they were my own personal trials that I wanted to see whether the water was responding to me or whether it would respond to other people. And across the board, from very, very healthy, well people that were extremely fit, they had a huge increase in energy, all the way to extremely very sick people, from people also with heart disease, with diseases that we all know about, and as well as depression, with infertility issues, with eyesight problems. The first I sent some water down to my godfather down in Wellington, and he drank about 1.5 litres of it in a day. And he said he went to the toilet and he heard this ping in the toilet. I'm like, okay, I really want to know what that was.
Yeah.
He said, he passed a kidney stone. Wow. I'm like, what? And so over the course of 1.5 years, I collected all this information from these people. And I'm like, okay, there is really something here with this water. But apart from just looking at the analysis of it, I wanted to know more. And I started reading a book about a few books about water that go into a little more depth. And I started to recognize that on a microscopic level, water has certain structural components to it, and they vary depending on the kind of water it is.
Yeah.
And that really led me on a journey of water discovery, and discovering not only about the science of water, but water's connection to our whole human body, its ability to absorb not just the environment, but human consciousness as well. I think even is being able to absorb information from a kind of omnisensory perspective. And yeah, I followed different belief systems. I've been really interested in what people believe, in philosophies. I've been to India 9 times. I've traveled the world. Indigenous belief systems, really resonate. And I feel that a lot of Indigenous people believe that water is a living being. And with the research that I've started to do, that all stemmed from this horrendous car accident and led me on this journey. Now I actually feel that that I have crystallographic evidence to show that water, in fact, does respond to consciousness and may even be conscious itself. And I've missed the whole part about my work, but we can get to that.
Yeah.
But I would love to share something that has been profound for me as part of that journey. Is that just before the big Christchurch earthquake, I used to live in Christchurch here in New Zealand, and we had a very large earthquake about 7 years ago or so. The day before the biggest one, a friend of mine was visiting, and I was telling her about that car accident, what had happened. And my son Rama, who was 3 at the time, he was, as children do, he was hiding and listening and spying on me. And he overheard the conversation, and I'd never spoken to him about it before. And he heard what happened. And when I finished talking, I remember he jumped up on me and he said, "I remember that, Mummy. I remember the window wipers and the tires." And he said, "I came down out of the clouds and I went like this and I saved you. And when I knew you were okay, I climbed back up the ladder into the clouds where his sister," he said, "where Shanti was, waiting for him."
This is way before. How long before they were born?
Oh, God, years and years.
So he just had the memory.
Really, Rama's only 12 now.
Oh, my God. So out of nowhere, he just had the memory that all of that happened way back before he was ever even incarnate in human form.
Absolutely. And I mean, it brought so much emotion up for me on multiple levels, as a parent. As a parent, just knowing I was chosen. He was like, "Oh, heck no, you're going to be my mum. I'm not having this." And also just the fact that he could remember that. It was so matter of fact, so sure, just a factual kind of statement that he came up with. And at 3, he's so young still.
It's like these Dalai Lamas who they recognize their items and stuff from the previous ones. They're like, "Oh, that was mine." It's that level of intensity, of like specificity.
Yeah. He's an amazing boy. And so, I started to really look into water as something very magical. And so I was inspired by several people to start doing my own research. And Masaru Emoto, as many people know, he was definitely one of them when his book came out. And
this book,
that's it, The Hidden Messages in Water. And you can see on the front of that cover, that's a beautiful ice crystal that has responded to a word. I think that word may be gratitude on the front of that.
Yeah.
But he did some wonderful stuff which showed the contrast of what could be termed as positive and what could be termed as negative. So he would write the word love and compare it to what the word hate showed with an ice And so he would flash freeze water after it had been exposed to a word or a prayer or a multitude of different influences, and then photograph microscopically the ice crystals that developed relative to the last influence. And his book became very, very popular, I think, because it was so visual. People could see the contrasts of a positive affirmational word compared to something like hate.
Yeah.
And the water structure looks like a mudslide. It doesn't hold geometric structures like the front of that book. And also there is he's also become a very good friend. His name is Laurent Costa. He's a French photographer who photographs ice crystals too. But what's really interesting about his work is that it doesn't just show geometric patterns. His work actually also shows up microscopically happy faces and fish and things like that. And I was like, oh, wow, this is taking it to like another level. And I also read a very kind of obscure piece of information by a doctor by the name of Thomas Hieronymus. And he went to this French meat market, and he observed that freshly placed organs of animals that had been slaughtered, there was glass behind them where they were placed, and it was cold, and so frost had developed above the organs. But what was interesting is that the frost had formed into the same shape as the organ. For example, the heart, the frost kind of had taken the form of the shape of the organ of the heart, and same with the liver and the kidney. And he had this concept that life force energy was still somehow emanating from the organ and affecting the water crystallography above it. And so my thinking was, well, imagine if I could take, a living hand, for example, that wasn't severed, and place it into a petri dish of water as an influence and freeze it and see what happened. And so you kind of put all those three influences together for me, and I'm like, okay, I really want to see if this thing about water having memory or holding information is really real for me. But at the time, I didn't have a microscope. I was just working with what I had. And I had a petri dish, and I had a freezer, and I had an iPhone. So I'm like, okay. So I put some water, the same water that I was drinking that helped to heal my body and helped to expel the glass. I put that into a petri dish, and my idea was that I would just, influence it in some way, but that organically happened. So there was some fluff in the petri dish. So I was like, oh God, okay. So I put my hand in to take the fluff out, but consciously thinking, I wonder if my hand will have an impact on the water's memory. And I was reminded of Dr. Hieronymus's observations as well. So I froze it. I kind of forgot about it for a few hours. And when I pulled it out, I held it up to the light, and I took a photograph. And that photograph has led me on this journey now for the last 8 years of water crystallography. And there was a picture of a hand in the ice that was half the size of the petri dish that almost looks like an X-ray, but I'm like, I was so amazed. And I said to my son, Rama, hey, Rama, what does this picture look like? He said, oh, it's a hand, Mum.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it is a hand, isn't it? And I'm like, okay, is this a coincidence? That rational mind trying to like make sense of stuff.
Yeah.
So I went down to the beach, and I got some seawater because I thought of all water that would be informed outside of amniotic fluid, surely it's got to be seawater. And so I put a small layer of seawater into the petri dish. I made it thin because salt water freezes much slower than spring water. And then I took it out after having it frozen it, and I took a photograph, and you can see an amazing fish in it with its fins and scales and a perfectly round eye and tail. And I'm like, okay, there's something going on here. I need to investigate this. So I've taken over 10,000 photographs of of ice images that have responded to human consciousness or their environment. And the body of work in itself is the part that can't be ignored. I think that if it was a coincidence, you might get at most maybe 4 or 5 images time after time that are doing something that looks like something.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been an amazing journey. But I changed my technique as I begin to become much more aware of the newer science of water. And
Which
I
has
discovered
emerged a lot since all of this happened with you. It's amazing how far it's come and how far it's going. That's also what gives your work such a powerful, suggestive potential. You know, it literally speaks to possibility, because if consciousness, if intention, if feeling, if things are having that much of an effect, I mean, that much of a replicatable effect on water. And I've seen a lot of these photos, everybody, like, it's just, you like can't even, it's like she said, your rational mind's like, oh, you want to try to make sense, but it's just so beyond, you just feel like, okay, I have to surrender, because your mind can't comprehend it. It can't process it. And the more you try to, the more it brings you to this place of like, okay, I just got to let go. So it's amazing. And this new science that you're suggesting, like, it's really validating possibility here.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Well, I started observing water as it began to freeze, and it does different things. Creates like a skin on the surface of the water, and that skin you can see it. You can see it starting to like branch out. It's like the formless becoming form in front of your eyes. And I've observed that there's 2 types of water. There's the informed water, and then there's the water that appears to be uninformed. And the informed water is attracted to the glass at the bottom of the petri dish, and that is where the crystallography forms. And the uninformed water seems to just freeze much slower. So I formed a technique where I'm able to get rid of the uninformed water and look at the crystalline architecture, and it's a very short process. And what's interesting is that I get a much more 3D view of water. So from the old technique, which was just freeze it and see what happens, to a very sophisticated technique where I'm able to really see things from a new perspective.
Yeah.
But water is also working with me. I feel like I'm doing these co-creations. I say that because I'm getting a response. I realize for a co-creation, it requires 2 active participants.
Yeah.
But water is responding. For example, I asked water, because I'm right out on the edge, I'm using influences like photographs and putting a petri dish of water on top of a photograph for 30 seconds, freezing it using my technique and photographing it and getting an image of the person's features and face.
From the
I'm
photograph.
writing words. Sorry?
I said from the photograph, you're doing that.
Yeah. And then I'll write a word underneath. I put the petri dish of water on top of the word, and I'll have an image that relates to the word. I can write. I've been doing such a lot of different co-creations. Music's wonderful. I'll play music to the water, and it will kind of respond in a way which is very interesting, because I think we all like different types of music. It's not limited to one type.
Right.
And I think water is able to express itself in all different types of music. So I did a whole different load of genres, seeing what water would do. And what was really interesting was that water sometimes would create geometries. Sometimes it would create images that were relative to a word in the song. Like I did 6 co-creations. I don't like the word experiment, because I think of all, and even though I still sometimes almost start saying it because I'm around so many scientists, but But I'm this massive body of water. We all are, and I don't like the idea of being experimented on. And so I take that same feeling with the work that I do with water. So I try to really check myself whenever I start saying the word experiment. But I did 6 tests with with the song Stairway to Heaven. And in every single photograph, a stairway was present. And I took 1 photo per petri dish. It's not like I'm taking thousands and choosing the best one. I couldn't do that anyway if I wanted to, because the ice melts so quickly in this process. And so in that respect, water was responding to a word in the song. But then I did one where I played the sound of a gong. My assumption was that I would see some kind of, like, I don't know, circles or something geometric maybe. But no, it shows me I should never assume anything. Water actually designed an image of a gong with a mallet on top of it. So it designed the instrument. I'm like, what the heck? And so I've learned not to assume anything with the intelligence of what water can create. And that's what's so exciting to me, is that I have this huge body of work which is quite difficult for the rational mind to get itself around. However, it's very real. And I'm like a little kid. I get so excited about these because I never know what's going to show up.
Yeah.
I
get so excited every time you send any to me. I'm like, what's this next? It's like a Christmas gift or
we've
holiday
been doing this
gift
for years.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess one powerful one, or there's been several. And I started saying that I'm right out on the edge. So I thought, well, I'll just have some communion with water.
Right. Might as well try talking with it if you're that far out.
Yeah, exactly. I got nothing to lose. And so I started out, I said hi.
Yeah.
And the amazing thing was that in the ice image, there was the English word HI. I'm like, no, rational mind again.
Right.
And I did it again. And then I got another high, but this time with like a little heart on top of the I. And then I said to the water, do you know who I am? And it blew me away because it had my initials, VA. But what was amazing is that the initials were linked in the exact same way that I write my initials. And I'll share that with you so you can share it. But also, I said, because my mum, she was a walking angel on this planet, and she died in 1999. And I said, can you connect to my mum? See, I used to live in Japan years and years and years ago. That's a whole other story. But my mum and I would send letters to each other. And at the end of every letter she would send me, she would draw a circle with a heart in the middle. And that's exactly what showed in the ice, is a heart with a circle around it. And a year later, I did the same test and I got the same results. And so there is something very, very special going on here. And I'm inclined to believe that the Indigenous people are right, and that water is in fact a conscious, living, flowing entity.
Hence the name of your book, which
was just about to come out. Yeah.
The Secret Intelligence of Water. She's getting ready to publish a book that I have really strong feelings about it. I mean, I feel like it potentially could change so much for people, regardless if they're open to it or not. Just looking at it, even if you're close to it, it's still, there's no way you can't wonder what it's actually suggesting. It's literally that powerful. So Yeah.
Well, I always invite anyone that struggles with the mental part of like getting their head around what or how it's happening, even if they view it as art. I mean, this is the one of the things that I kind of call it weaving with water, where it's an interweave of science and art and consciousness or spirituality, all kind of flowing and linking together. Every one is valid as the other, but in unison of the three, I think that it holds a very powerful message, especially since water has found this way in which to communicate. It could stand as a way in which it could be an advocate for the environment, even in a
Mm.
way. And I'm just very humbled to be part of this because I feel that I'm the medium and water is the artist, and together we're co-creating into a new world, something very profound and beautiful.
Well said. My gosh. Well, look, I couldn't even be, I feel so blessed and so humbled to be able to even witness your work, much less to know you and to know some of the deeper aspects and the emotional aspects and different things that you have put into the creation of this body of work that, my God, does it speak for itself? That's underestimating it. It might speak for millions, you know? So I am so excited to just be a part of your life and to be able to share my passion for water with somebody who's just maybe you're more passionate about water than I am, which is pretty interesting because I love
You're right
water.
up
Like
there.
I am just all about water. There's just something, it's always been one of the most profound healing forces in my life. But to be able to interact with you on this level, to see you bring forth this body of work, and then as we watch the way others interact with this body of work, it suggests that this possibility that we've been referring to since the beginning of this talk is that there's a possible unification, not possible, there's a definitive unification coming up within human consciousness where we as individuals slow down this incessant identification with believing that we are alone or isolated or just an entity unto ourselves. And we're beginning to actually feel through our experience and through other people's experiences of these connections with water. You know,
Mm,
water is such a unifying element, and your work is literally making this a reality. Like it's speaking towards this greater reality, like nothing
mm.
I've ever seen. So,
Thank you. I think it's the bloodline of life.
yeah.
You know, it is the unifying force of life. There is no life without water. And a friend of mine, Moses Hackman, he said that water is the glove on the hand of consciousness.
Mm.
I think that's a powerful, powerful thing to say and has a very deep meaning.
It's a meaning that definitely needs to be contemplated for a bit
I
because
think so.
it you can feel it, you can think about it, like it has all these different connotations to what it could signify. So, yeah,
Mm,
very
yeah.
interesting.
And Seth, you know, we're both great admirers of each other. What you do, and that somebody is there representing their company of water. I really love that. I believe that you give a voice of real, genuine authenticity to the water that you'll get you know that you're providing for people, and there isn't that your energy is in that, and I really believe that. I believe that water also chose you to be the representative of it, and that you know you're out there doing amazing work. You just keep on going, keep on giving hope to people and love to people, and I really feel very honored to be your friend.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's something we can talk about too. I mean, the entire vision for Tourmaline Spring
Mm,
came out of self-healing through one of the
yeah.
most difficult times of my life. So it's an interesting story.
I'd love to hear that in another talk.
Yeah, we could totally get into
Yeah.
that. And I have a feeling that as we do this, and we're going to get into all kinds of things, by the way. This is like right now we're talking about Veda, we're talking about more personal things, but we're going to get all the personal stuff in there. We're going to get it out of the way, and then we're going to start going deeper and deeper into many different layers and possibilities of water. And I feel like that's going to bring some incredible people with incredible, empowering stories into our line of work, into our awareness, who are going to share things that are going to be so powerful with the listeners, because we are literally in one of these times where it's like if we resist the intensity of these times, it consumes us, it swallows us, and it's painful. And so it's only through surrendering to this intensity and just being like, okay, it's on fire, I'm just going to let it burn itself through me, that we get through it. When we surrender to that, when we just let it, like, okay, do what you're going to do, there is such peace on the other side of that. There is such transformation. And we are literally in one of these times right now where we're going to, as a species, witness this happening collectively. I truly feel that. And I know so many others do as well. So these talks, everything that we're doing here is really almost like the initiation of a lot of other things that are going to come out of it. So, all right. Well, look, thank you, Veda. I am really looking forward to speaking with you soon. And I'm going to include all the links and everything to Veda's book. And there'll be a whole bunch of stuff underneath this. So just look at this information, share it, like it, get involved with it, talk about it with your friends and loved ones. Really try to engage with it, because what Veda has been able to demonstrate time and time again is that there is a conversation, a communication, a dialogue, a dialectic that is actually happening between our awareness and water. And though the rational mind can't really grasp it or make sense of it, makes no difference. Because if you still approach this whole topic, everything we've talked about, with an open heart, with an open mind, feeling the air of possibility, then this communication that we're talking about will respond to you or work with you in ways that you can't even imagine, like it has for us. So we sit here humbled because we know we know what transformation is like, from a core fundamental level to the most basic levels. And we know that it's only the tip of the iceberg, to use a water pun.
I love it.
Okay, you guys, until next time, we'll see you soon.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to the Integrative Science of Water and Consciousness podcast with Veda Austin and Seth Pruzansky. If you'd like to know more about Veda Austin, please go to VedaAustin.com. To learn more about Seth and Tourmaline Spring, go to tourmalinespring.com and I'mAwakeNowWhat.com. You'll also be able to find copies of this podcast and back issues at all of the websites we listed above. Thank you.